Good evening, Bahamas. This is NB12 broadcasting from Cable 12 Studios on Robinson Road. Here's what's coming up in news. Voter fraud hearings continue in North Andros today. The Prime Minister also weighed in last night. The PLP memorialized Sir Lyndon Pindling in South Andros last night, and a long-serving senior police officer given a military funeral. Those stories and so much more on the way. I'm Nikia DeVoe, and NB12 starts right now. Thanks again for joining us here at NB12. The list of people registered in North Andros who are being challenged has been cut from 30 to 17. Before hearing more evidence in Nicholstown today, Administrator Huntley Christie heard submissions from attorney Philip Brave Davis that Prime Minister Hubert Ingram prejudiced the hearing by revealing the name of one of the witnesses being challenged. Arkandia Dames was in North Andros today and filed this report.
Attorney Philip Brave Davis, who represents some of the people being objected to, said Prime Minister Hubert Ingram compromised these proceedings and turned them into a political circus by calling that voter's name at that rally in New Providence earlier this week. But attorney Elma Campbell, who represents the objectors, noted at the tribunal today that in fact it was Mr. Davis who first called the man's name. He did so in an interview outside this courthouse last week Friday, and that interview was broadcast. In that interview, Davis called the voter's last name. Today in court, he said that what the Prime Minister did in commenting on the matter resulted in harassment and intimidation. But Administrator Christie seemed unmoved by the fact that Prime Minister Ingram revealed the voter's name. Administrator Christie said he was not intimidated by anyone and that no one is above the law. Then he moved on, directing that witnesses be called, and several were, including a woman who says she lives in Andros but has been in Nassau frequently in recent times for medical reasons. The next was a young woman who says she resides in Morgan's Bluff, North Andros, and is only in Nassau because she attends the College of the Bahamas and has been doing so on and off for the past 7 years. She works part-time at a Nassau pharmacy. The young woman told the court that her mother was the official who registered her to vote in North Andros. Next to testify was a man who said that he lives in Andros and goes to Nassau to visit his wife. Then there was a man who says he has lived in North Andros all his life, but sometimes goes to Nassau to do construction work. Attorney Elma Campbell spoke with reporters briefly after today's hearing.
A small thing. We're talking about people's constitutional right to participate in the electoral process. So that we get it right, we could hardly term that as a small thing. It would never be a waste of time.
But unlike last week, Davis declined to speak with reporters when he left the court hearing today. DNA North Andros candidate Randy Butler was also outside the court. He offered this comment.
It's important that we have a clean registry. Democracy must be done. What is happening, and you can see the polarization and see all the history of what happened, and it's happening again. We're dividing the people in a big way. I think it's important they exercise. I think there needs to be a leader here in the midst of this that are bringing people together for them to understand truly what is happening here. There's nothing to fight about. Some people have made an application objecting, and this is normally what happens.
Again today, North Andros residents expressed mixed views about the hearing and also mixed views about Ingram calling that voter's name at the rally.
I feel as if it should be noted that Mr. Davis called the first defendant name just as he stepped out of court last week. He called his surname, and after he called his surname, and as we was told that it is a public hearing, the administrator just asked for this person's name not to be called. And saying that it's a public hearing, I feel as if the Prime Minister was correct in calling the first defendant name.
He's wrong. He's wrong because if the presiding officer says, hey, we hold off until everything is all said and done, why should he be so different? Why must he, because he's the chief in command, call the man in? He's wrong. He's wrong. He's the dictator and he needs to go.
Right now, it looks like the FNM is going to get some justice. The other side was doing this for many number of years, but all I want is that at the end of the day, that FNM, PLPs, and Androsians come together.
Now, at this point, it remains unclear just how long these hearings will last. But it is important to note here that no changes can be made to the voters' register once the House of Assembly is dissolved. Administrator Christie has adjourned this matter to Monday morning. Reporting from Nicholstown, for NB12, I'm Candia Dames.
Well, in light of those votes being challenged in North Andros, Prime Minister Hubert Ingraham had some choice words for some residents he says may be deliberately registering in the wrong constituencies. Those comments and more came at the FNM's Yamacraw constituency office opening last night. Our Jasmine Bonamy reports.
The Free National Movement continued its nationwide tour, opening constituency offices across the Bahamas, and on Thursday night they opened the office in Yamacraw.
While there were more than half a dozen speakers last night, it was Prime Minister Ingraham who ignited the packed crowd of Free National Movement supporters. He not only hit out at the Progressive Liberal Party, but also revealed new details about the challenged list of voters in North Andros, saying that number is dwindling. A week ago, there were 30 people whose eligibility to register in that constituency were challenged.
Already 10 of them have transferred out of North Andros into the constituency in which they live. And another 7 who we didn't even challenge because we didn't even know, they also transferred out to where they live.
Last night, the Prime Minister celebrated the shift of voters, saying he wanted others to follow.
This is good, and I want to encourage any and all persons who may have registered in constituencies in which they do not live and are not qualified to vote to transfer their registration now. I don't care whether you're FNM, PLP, or anything else. I only want you voting where you live. And there's still time to do so. Do the right thing. And I'm speaking to all eligible Bahamian voters. We want a clean election. Ensure that you register in the correct constituency.
He added that the government is also working hard to clean up the register of voters in time for the upcoming general elections. In addition to his comments on voter registration, Mr. Ingraham also took jabs at campaign promises by the PLP. He attacked the PLP's record on education and said a promise by the PLP to double the education budget would cost hundreds of millions of dollars.
Sometimes I really think they think we are stupid. Now they tell us, haven't been an abysmal failure in education, that they can double the education budget. Well, that would take another $290 million a year to double it. Another $290 million a year.
Are you serious?
Dead serious. You know, at some point, it is going to dawn on Perry Christie to listen to what he says. He may then say something that people could believe.
But Mr. Ingraham was not the only one to hit out at the PLP. For his part, Yamacraw candidate Dion Folk said the PLP did little to nothing to empower the poor.
For 25 years, from 1967 to 1992, the party that calls itself progressive failed to introduce minimum wage, a fundamental item for any progressive party.
Now it doesn't end here. The Prime Minister and his team will be heading to South and Central Eleuthera tomorrow. Reporting for NB12, I'm Jasmine Bonamy.
Well, nearly 12 years ago, the Bahamas laid to rest the country's first Prime Minister, Sir Lynden Pindling. Sir Lynden, who last represented South Andros, led the Bahamas to majority rule in 1967 and independence in 1973. Last night, the Progressive Liberal Party launched the campaign of current South Andros Member of Parliament, Picewell Forbes, while recognizing Sir Lynden's contributions to Andros and the Bahamas. Christina McNeil reports.
It was on Bluff Park in the constituency of Central and South Andros, the area represented by the country's first Prime Minister, Sir Lynden Pindling, that PLPs and Bahamians gathered to remember what would have been his 82nd birthday.
A hush washed over the park as attendees listened to the voice of the first Prime Minister lay out his plans for the future of the Bahamas and national health insurance in a special audio presentation.
National insurance laid the foundation for a very important social security system in the Bahamas that was to provide for the poor and the needy in times of crisis when they needed help most. And I think that what we will see, the national insurance will be the vehicle by which we would eventually get health insurance. We would eventually get unemployment insurance.
Dame Marguerite Pindling, who campaigned in South Andros for her husband, says the people in South Andros from Driggs Hill to Mars Bay have always held a special place in her heart and the vision that Pindling had for the island.
We had this meeting and Sam McKinney said, since you're a home girl, he will have to be a home boy. So he said to bring him. So by the time Pindling got back from Andros, he was unofficially the candidate for South Andros because, you see, he was leaving his safe seat in New Providence. He took a chance to leave that safe seat in the Southern District of New Providence to come in South Andros, an island that he's never visited. He took a chance.
PLP leader Perry Christie, who describes himself as a bridge between Sir Lynden Pindling and this generation, says the PLP still believes in Bahamianization and putting Bahamians first.
Christie says at the PLP's 1997 convention, Sir Lynden told supporters that people are the most precious resource. Christie says those words still ring true today.
I've learned a lot from Sir Lynden Pindling. Lessons I have never forgotten. He never forgot that politics is really all about people. From 1967 to 1992, he presided over what historians and future generations of Bahamians will rightfully hail as the golden age of progress for the Bahamian people.
Moving forward, Christie told supporters last night that the country needs a revolution in education and training and pledged to double the investment in those areas. He says innovation and resources are needed at every level, from preschool straight up to workers already in the workforce, to keep skills current and competitive. The PLP goes to Nassau Village next on Saturday for the opening of PLP candidate Dion Smith's headquarters. Reporting for NB12, I'm Christina McNeil.
Well, as we just mentioned, the PLP was in South Andros for the official launch of their campaign in Mangrove Key and South Andros. Current Member of Parliament Picewell Forbes took members of the media on a tour of the island before the launch event, showing some of the infrastructure work that is currently being done on the island's bridges and explaining what is left to be done. Last night, he told supporters that it's time for change in the Bahamas and South and Central Andros.
Land ownership here in South Andros is important. We got too much land and people ain't got title for land. That's why I'm glad when the Prime Minister visited to me the other day that we're going to give the people in Montgomery tract their paper. I say, thank you, Jesus. I am glad to know we've started the process. And now it's incumbent upon me to finish it. Our people are going to get land in South Andros. With the assistance of Perry, Gladstone, Christie, and the PLP, we're going to put a major anchor project in South Andros and get our people back home in Andros.
Forbes says there will also be access to funding to assist bonefish lodges to expand and improve their properties, as well as a modern ferry service for Central Andros. Meanwhile, PLP Deputy Leader Philip Brave Davis said if elected, the PLP has big plans for the area.
The PLP government will commit to upgrading the infrastructure needs of these communities. Docks, bridges, and roads in Andros are part of our plan to bring opportunities to this part of the country. As in many islands of the Bahamas, land titles are an issue. We intend to address this problem so you can hold papers to your land and live on, so that you can take your papers to the bank and help you construct the right home that you need. That's what we will be doing in our next term in office.